I've been down to the village several times with Brant and also seen a lot of the slides that he's brought back from his many years down there. And really one of the things that really stands out for me is just like he was talking about, the joy that the people have. And often when I'm cruising around the streets in America, people look stressed out and they look weighted down. And you know, stress is a real thing for people, and it really doesn't matter whether your problem is a very big one or a very small one. If you feel stress from it, it will affect you. It will affect you, won't it? And so a lot of the tools that you have learned here in these last several hours can help you to reduce the stress in your life. Certainly one of those is one of the keys that I use all the time, and that's just to quiet your mind. Often we can't change the things, we can't rid our lives of the situations that are causing us stress, but we can stop our mind from adding to the situation by just being quiet. And one of the easiest ways that I find to do that is to actually go outside and just go for a walk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? Has anybody in this room ever gone for a walk before? How'd you feel when you came back? Great, yeah. You feel good because it just gives you a chance to get out, breathe, feel the air, see the sunlight, feel the earth, look at whatever's around you, and to just disconnect what may have been causing you that stress. It's so simple, but it can be such a positive, powerful tool for resetting the focus of your day when it may not be going the way you'd hope, or where the stress just feels like it's getting you down a little bit. Another thing that you can do is to exercise, like I talked about, aerobically. And a lot of people ask me, how long do I have to exercise for to have a benefit? I say, well, you know, it really depends on your goal. If you're trying to lose weight, you know, there's a certain amount of time that you may need to go out daily or every other day so that you start to burn more calories in your eating and you start to change your body composition. If you have a race goal, you may have to exercise longer and throw in some of those faster training sessions. But the real answer is to go out and exercise long enough so that you feel a shift in your mindset. And that's what I do. You know, I just go out long enough now so that, you know, I can just sort of feel refreshed, so that I stop thinking about all the stuff that I've been working on for the past however, you know, hour or 2 or 3 or 4 in front of the computer, and feel that shift. Now, if I only have 20 minutes, I try to force myself to feel that shift right away. You know, you got to be a realist with all of this stuff. But again, that's another way that you can reduce the stress in your life. Another tool that I talked about is to eat a lot of meals throughout the day. That reduces the stress on your body because you're never getting these big, huge moments where all the blood's going to your digestive system and it's having to deal with all this food. Little bits throughout the day keeps your body in a low-stress situation. Connecting with nature reduces stress in your life. And I didn't realize this till how powerful that was really until after I quit racing. You know, when I trained, I would go outside, and I was outside training all day, every day, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day. And so I was sort of just by osmosis taking in all these beautiful impressions from nature. And then when I quit and I had to work more on kind of the indoor business stuff, I realized that I was missing that connection, and I wasn't feeling as good. And at first I thought it was because I wasn't exercising as much, but then I realized, no, it's because I'm inside and I'm just not getting out there as much as I used to. So I take that time and just go out, make that connection to nature. You know, stress is something that can kind of build up in your body over time. I don't know if you actually get older or if it's just that the level of stress has sort of started to take its effect on you. I felt that most in my racing career during my final preparation for my final Ironman. That happened in 1995. I was 37 years old, which in the big picture of things is very young. Don Jose lived to be 110. You know, 37 was like a baby. But in the world of elite athletics, I was ancient and I was a fossil. And I was coming back hoping to win my 6th title that year. The previous year, I had not raced Ironman because we had the birth of my son that year, and I wanted to just step away from all of that training and hopefully find out what that meant to be a father a little bit more. But anyway, in '95, I came back. This was going to be my attempt to win my 6th title at that race, which would tie Dave Scott's record. But I was 37 years old. The guys that I was racing against were 10 and 15 years younger than me, and there's no way that as a 37-year-old I could train the same way those guys were going to be training. On any given day, because of my age, I was going to have to cut back on what I'd done in previous years by 25 to 50%. But I was going to have to go faster. So how was I going to do that much less and get better results? Well, certainly not by focusing on my body, but focusing on having a fit soul. Hopefully, I could develop that inner character that would carry me past the tough moments in the race better than the young guys who maybe would get stuck in negative thoughts or negative feelings or emotions. And so that year, I went to a lot of extra retreats with Brant to try and just absorb as much of his knowledge and wisdom and energy as I could. And the last big retreat I went to was right when all of my other training partners were diving into their Ironman training leading up to the race, about 2 months out in August. And so when all of my training partners said, we're starting our Ironman training, I said, I'm going to Alaska for 8 days to be with Brant and to charge up my soul. And they looked at me like, are you nuts? You know, you're not going to swim, bike, or run for 8 days, and everybody else is starting into all this kind of stuff. And I go, see you later. Ciao. And I went up there, and Brant did extra ceremonies to help charge my body up as a 37-year-old, because I needed a lot of help that year. I also stopped in Santa Cruz on my way over to Hawaii, and he did a little extra blessing to get me really going. But I was really trying to do everything I could. And the race actually started to unfold pretty good for me. I took the lead early on the bike, but I didn't hold it. And when I came in off of the run, I was 13.5 minutes behind the leader. So now, I'm 37 years old, trying to win the race. I would be the oldest champion ever. Nobody had ever done that before. I was 13.5 minutes down. Nobody had ever come back from that far behind to win. A second part of impossibility. But I was trying to just remember everything that Brant had said to me, you know, like keeping your mind quiet, being fearless in the face of your fears. And I was certainly afraid. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I was trying to just draw in as much positive energy as I could from the crowd as I left the transition area from the run, from the bike to get out on the run course. And when I got to the top of the first hill, there were 3 old ladies who were cheering, and they were looking right at me, and they go, oh, go Mark, go Mark, go Mark. Ah, he doesn't look so good. And that thought sunk in, and about a mile later, I felt so bad, I didn't know if I was even going to be able to finish the race. I mean, talk about the power of a negative thought. It was sabotaging my race. And then I couldn't hold it out anymore. All that negative stuff started to come in. The guy who's ahead of me, he's 13.5 minutes down. He's 24 years old. He's 13 years younger than me. There's no way I can beat that guy. A marathon to go with a 13.5 minute gap. I've got to make up 30 seconds a mile every single mile of this marathon, and there's no way I can do that. And hey, there's a hotel just that's the easy way out, right? If we quit, there is no chance of completing our dreams, is there? Even if we give up and stay in it, if we've given up, there is no chance of realizing those great dreams we have for ourselves or completing those things that have importance to us. Finally, I tried to get my mind to be quiet because I knew that was the only way I could do it. Maybe the answer would come. It took about a mile, and finally I was able to get my mind to be quiet, and then the answer did come. Take it to the finish line. Take it all the way. And I realized, yeah, even if I don't win this thing, I need to somehow just get to that finish line, because as bad as I feel, that would be a victory on this day. And if I could get to that finish line, I would honor not only the training that I did, but I would especially honor all the work that Brant had done to get me ready. That's why we have community, isn't it? We have responsibility. We feel responsibility to something greater than just ourselves, so that when we're struggling, we can draw strength from those other people, or we can remember how they're depending on us to show our best in this moment. And that's what I had to do. And I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to get to that finish line, even if I have to walk every step of this marathon. And I dedicated myself to doing what I knew I could do, and that was to try and make up a second or an inch every single step from that point forward. That was a small enough bite that I could chew. My brain could get around that. 30 seconds a mile was impossible. 20 miles in the marathon, I was still behind the guy. I was making up time. With 8 miles to go, I was told I was 4 minutes behind him. The guy had been leading for 6 hours now. So I was making up 30 seconds a mile, but I was still only on pace to catch him at the finish line. And that is not a good place to catch a guy who's 13 years younger than you when you're sprinting for the finish. I needed something else, but I couldn't find it. And again, my mind went crazy. This guy is not, he's going to win it. I'm too old. I just can't do it. What do I need here? And then I remembered one of the very simple things that Brant just said in passing as we were partying when I left his house in Santa Cruz. He said, if you need help there, just call out to the Big Island. Every place on this earth is alive, and the island will hear you. And so I waited till NBC kind of moved away, because I didn't want them to call the medics because they'd think I'd just lost it. But I waited, and then I said, hey, Big Island, help me. I need something extra. I'm going to give it everything I have here, but I need something extra. The mile after that, I made up 40 seconds on the guy who was leading. The mile after that, I made up a little over 50. And the mile after that, I made up 1 minute and 15 seconds on the guy who'd been leading the race now for 6.5 hours. Finally, at mile 23 of the marathon, I passed the 24-year-old who had looked like he was going to be the champion. I went on to win my final Ironman in 1995, the 6th in a row. And it all came because of integrating these themes of fit soul, fit body, and the great work that Brant did to keep me healthy all along the way in all of those races and to help me out in that last victory. So I hope that gives you an idea of how I've integrated some of these themes in my life, in my racing, but also, as Brant said, we use these themes every single day in our own lives. And so hopefully they can help to enrich your experience while you're here in Boulder. If you live here, obviously you know how great of a place this is. Also to help develop that community of LOHAS that you've come to gather around and to carry you forward through a lot of the experiences that you have coming up. So I think we'd like to open it up for some questions, if anybody has them. And does anybody have a question for either myself or for Brant? Yes.
When did your parents know that you were in a village?
They noticed, she asked, when did my parents realize I was there? Well, you could go to town once in a while. So when I went to town, then I called them and told them. And they supported me. My father made a joke when I called him. He said, well, some children, they go to LIU or this. He goes, my son's going to Shaman U. And then he said, oh, is that shame on you? Because they were both, educated and had gone to university, both my mother and father. But they accepted it because, especially when they saw me. And once I brought Don Jose up to meet them, and they just saw how happy it had made me. So they realized it right away, pretty much right away. Another question? Yeah.
Do you know of other world-class athletes or Olympians that have used a more spiritual approach to their...
I have heard of a handful, yeah. Like one of the great Moroccan runners would take the month, what is it called, Ramadan, where they fast until sunset every day. And he uses that as a way to gain inner strength. But in general, not a whole lot of athletes know. And I've always asked myself, all these guys saw me go away to these workshops with Brant and come back totally charged up and then have these amazing races that I could pull out of the hat. And not only that, but there were times where I was injured and the doctors would say, well, you need to take 6 weeks off. And I go, no, I need to win Ironman in 6 weeks. And then Brant, I would go to Brant and he would heal me in the very traditional way that he does. And amazingly and luckily, it always worked out. So anyway, I asked myself, why aren't these other guys coming to learn what it is that brought me so far in my racing and then continues to carry on now? And I realized probably one of the answers is that on some level they all know that if they come, they're going to have to change some things about themselves that are tough to change. Because a top-level athlete is working, they're at like 97 or 98% of their potential. But that last little 1 or 2% means that they are going to have to change the thing that's probably the toughest for them to change about themselves. Otherwise, they would have already done it. And so I think on some level they know if I come and learn from Brant, it's going to require me to do the toughest thing that I have avoided. And so I'm going to avoid it a little longer. That's the only thing I could come up with. Because I think, all of his tools, as you've heard, they're very just basic, and they resonate with our deep genetics of how we're put together. Connecting with nature, that's something that before we had movie theaters and Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz and all these things going on, we had sunsets and sunrises to watch and to go, wow, that's pretty cool. And that's how we're set up to feel good and to empower our bodies and our souls.